The lonely guardian, the sun, cast long shadows across the barren landscape of Terrace 9 as Jace Merritt completed his daily perimeter check. 6 years he'd been stationed at this forgotten outpost, monitoring the automated mining operations and keeping watch for pirates who might try to raid the valuable mineral deposits. 6 years of solitude, broken only by supply drops and occasional transmissions from command. He preferred it that way. The mirror in his quarters remained covered. The right side of his face, neck, and most of his body bore the remnants of plasma fire from the Battle of Proxima Centauri. The synthetic skin grafts had saved his life, but left him a patchwork of normal skin and artificially smooth planes that never quite matched in color or texture. Incoming. Transmission from Earth Colonial Authority announced the outpost's AI system. Jace sighed. Running his hand through his prematurely graying hair, put it through, Vex. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing Admiral Holden's stern face. Captain Merritt. How's our most remote guardian doing today? Still breathing, sir, Jace replied, angling his unscarred side toward the camera, as he always did. Good to hear. I'm calling about the Interspecies Cooperation Initiative. The one you've rejected participation in 3 times now. Jace frowned. With respect, Admiral, I'm not suited for diplomatic assignments. I work better alone. This isn't a request this time, Captain. The Astrali have specifically requested to send one of their representatives to Terrace 9, apparently. The unique mineral composition is of scientific interest to them. A cold weight settled in Jace's stomach. The Australia species renowned for their crystalline-like skin that reflected light in dazzling patterns and their acute empathic abilities. Beautiful, perfect beings who would see right through his carefully constructed walls. Sir, the outpost barely supports me. There's no accommodations have been arranged. The Australi representative arrives in 2 weeks. This partnership will last 6 months. 8. The Admiral's expression softened slightly. Listen, Jace, it's been 6 years. You can't hide forever. After the transmission ended, Jace made his way to the small observation deck. Stars dotted the violet sky, cold and distant like the life he'd left behind. He uncovered the mirror hanging there and forced himself to look at his reflection, the ruined landscape of his face. The legacy of the day he'd saved his crew but couldn't save himself. How could he possibly host an Astrali? Their kind, valued beauty and harmony, they communicated as much through emotional resonance as words. What would this visitor sense from him but bitterness and pain? In the coming days, Jace prepared the outpost mechanically. He cleaned the unused quarters, checked environmental settings, and updated the outpost's database with Astrali physiological requirements. All the while, dread built inside him like an approaching storm. The night before his visitor's arrival, Jace stood under the stars, feeling the cool desert wind against his face, both the side that could still feel properly and the side with muted, artificial sensations. I'm not ready for this, he whispered to the empty landscape. But ready or not, tomorrow would come, and with it, the end of his solitude. Arrival from the stars, the transport ship descended through Terrace 9's thin atmosphere. Jace watched from a safe distance, uniform collar pulled high to shield the worst of his scars, cap lowered over his face. His heart hammered against his ribs as the vessel touched down, sending dust swirling across the landing pad. The hatch opened with a soft hiss of equalizing pressure. For a moment, nothing happened. Then she emerged. The Astrali stood framed in the doorway, her form silhouetted against the ship's interior lights. She stepped forward gracefully, and Jace's breath caught in his throat. Her skin was unlike anything he'd seen in holovids or briefing materials, a translucent blue that caught the sunlight and refracted it in subtle patterns across her body. Where human skin would show veins, hers displayed intricate crystalline formations that seemed to pulse with her heartbeat. Her eyes, large and faceted like precious gems, scanned the outpost before settling on him. Jace fought the urge to turn away. Captain Merritt, she called, her voice melodic with an accent that made his name sound like music. I am Neela Zun, xenobiologist and cultural liaison of the Astrali Collective. Jace stepped forward, keeping his face angled away. Welcome to Terrace 9, Specialist Zun, Not much to see, I'm afraid. On the contrary, she approached, carrying a single bag that seemed a light for a 6-month stay. Your world's mineral composition is fascinating. The resonance patterns alone could advance our understanding of crystalline growth by decades. As she drew closer, Jace tensed. The astrali were empaths would, she immediately senses discomfort. His shame? The outpost is this way, he said stiffly, turning to lead her inside. I've prepared quarters according to the specifications we received. Nyla followed, her movements fluid and graceful. Inside the climate-controlled environment, her skin's crystalline patterns became more pronounced, shifting subtly with each change in lighting. You've been alone here a long time, she observed, as he showed her to her quarters. Not a question, but a statement. Jace nodded curtly. 6 years. That requires strength, she said, studying him with those gemstone eyes. Isolation can be its own battlefield. Something in her words caught him off guard. He'd expected pity, not understanding. The mess hall is down the corridor. Environmental controls are beside the door. If you need anything else, actually, she interrupted gently, I would appreciate a tour of the outpost. If you're not too busy, Jace hesitated. A tour meant prolonged interaction, more opportunities for her to see his scars, to sense his emotional landscape. Of course, he said finally. Standard protocol. As they walked the corridors, Jace maintained a professional distance, pointing out essential areas while sharing minimal information. But Nyla asked questions intelligent, specific questions about operations, about the planet's ecosystem, about his daily routine. And you maintain all this yourself? She asked as they entered the monitoring station. The AI system handles most functions. I'm here for situations that require human judgment. Nyla approached one of the screens, her crystalline patterns reflecting in the display. And for companionship? Does your AI provide that as well? Jace stiffened. I don't require companionship. She turned, those faceted eyes somehow seeing too much. Everyone requires connection, Captain. Even stars form in clusters. That night, alone in his quarters, Jace found himself thinking about Nyla's words. For the first time in years, the silence of the outpost felt less like peace and more like emptiness. Beneath the surface 3 weeks into Nyla's stay, the routine of the outpost had shifted in subtle ways. The mess hall, once a place Jace ate quickly before returning to work, now saw conversations that stretched beyond mere necessity. Nyla's questions about Earth culture were exchanged for Jace's curiosity about Strali society. He still kept his scarred side turned away when possible. Still wore high-neck shirts even in the outpost's controlled environment. But sometimes, caught in discussion about the mineral samples Nyla collected daily, he would forget his vigilance. It happened during one such moment. They were examining readings from a particularly unusual crystal formation when the outpost alarm blared. Perimeter breach detected, announced Vex, the AI system. Unidentified vessel approaching from Sector 7. Jace snapped to attention, military training overriding everything else. Scan for weapon signatures. Multiple energy weapons detected. Configuration matches known pirate vessels from the Orion Syndicate. Pirates, Jace muttered. They're after the Kelbium deposits. He turned to Nyla, all self-consciousness forgotten. Get to your quarters and lock down. This outpost has defensive capabilities, but I'm staying, she said firmly. Her crystalline patterns pulsing with an intensity he hadn't seen before. My people are not just scientists, Captain, before he could argue. The outpost shuddered under the first volley of weapon fire. Shields at 84%, reported Vex. Jace rushed to the defense station, fingers flying over the controls, deploying countermeasures. Vex initiate protocol, Epsilon. Hidden weapons platforms emerged from the outpost's exterior, returning fire at the approaching vessel. Beside him, Nyla placed her hands on a secondary console, her skin blazing with light. What are you? Jace began. Astrali technology interfaces directly with our crystalline biology, she explained, eyes closed in concentration. I can enhance your defensive systems temporarily. The outpost's shield suddenly flared brighter, energy patterns shifting in ways Jace had never seen. Shields now at 115% capacity, Vex announced. Sounding almost surprised, together, they repelled the first wave of attack. When the pirate ship retreated to a safe distance to regroup, Jace turned to Nyla with newfound respect. "You didn't mention you were a combat specialist." A smile curved her lips. "You didn't mention you were a decorated military officer. Your tactical deployment was impressive." Jace froze. "How did your movements? The way you responded without hesitation? The command codes you used?" Her gemstone eyes met his directly. "I served in the Australi Defense Collective for 12 years before becoming a xenobiologist." For the first time, Jace truly looked at her, not just her alien beauty, but the confidence in her stance. The calculation in her gaze as she monitored the enemy position. "I'll be back," he said. "With reinforcements." Anila nodded. "Then we prepare." She hesitated, then added, "Perhaps it's time to set aside our respective masks, Captain. Battle requires trust between allies." In that moment, with danger approaching and pretenses falling away, something shifted between them. Not just allies against a common enemy, but two warriors recognizing each other beneath carefully constructed exteriors. The revelation: the pirate vessel returned at dawn, this time accompanied by two smaller ships. Jace and Nyla had spent the night preparing, setting up additional defensive measures and planning counterattacks. Working through the crisis had created a different kind of intimacy, the kind forged in shared purpose and mutual reliance. "They're jamming communications," Jace reported as the enemy ships approached. "We can't call for reinforcements." Nyla's crystalline patterns pulsed with a steady, determined rhythm. "We won't need them." The battle that followed tested every skill they possessed. Jace's tactical experience, combined with Nyla's unique abilities, kept them one step ahead of the pirates' assault. When one of the smaller ships breached their outer defenses, Jace sealed the command center and prepared for possible boarding. "If they get in," he said grimly, checking his weapon, "stay behind me." "I can fight," Nyla replied. Her usually melodic voice hardened with resolve. Jace hesitated, then made a decision. "I know. But there's something you should know first." He took a deep breath. "If we don't survive this, I don't want to die behind a mask." Slowly. Deliberately, he turned fully toward her, allowing her to see his face completely for the first time. The extensive scarring that ran from his right temple down his neck, disappearing beneath his collar. "Battle of Proxima Centauri," he explained quietly. "My ship was hit. I got my crew to the escape pods, but the final explosion caught me before I could get out." Instead of pity or revulsion, Nyla stepped closer. Her gemstone eyes studied his scars with something like recognition. "May I?" she asked, raising her hand toward his face, heart pounding. Jace nodded. Her touch was cool against his damaged skin, gentle as she traced the ridged landscape of his scars. Where her fingers passed, her crystalline patterns seemed to echo the shapes of his injuries, taking on similar patterns momentarily before returning to their natural state. "You've lived well," she said softly. "These are the marks of someone who chose others before himself." Something tight in Jace's chest began to unravel. Most humans find them difficult to look at. "My people see scars differently." Her hand remained on his face. "Each mark tells a story of survival, of continuing despite pain." She hesitated, then added, "We have our own form of scars, though they're not visible to most." With her free hand, she guided his fingers to a section of her arm where the crystalline patterns formed an unusual, almost jagged design, unlike the flowing formations elsewhere. "Our patterns record emotional memories," she explained. "Trauma affects the crystalline structure permanently. This was from the day I lost my unit in the Cygnus conflict." Understanding dawned. "You're a survivor too." Their eyes met in perfect comprehension. In that moment, with danger surrounding them and barriers finally broken, Jace leaned forward until his forehead rested against hers. The connection felt like coming home after a lifetime of wandering. The outpost shuddered under another assault. "Breaking the moment, we should get back to defending our home," Nyla said, her fingers intertwining with his. "Our home." The words resonated within him as they returned to their battle stations. Now standing closer, moving in perfect synchronization, For the first time in 6 years, Jace felt truly seen, scars and all. New Horizons, the pirate fleet retreated 3 days later. Outmatched by the unexpected defense capabilities of what should have been an isolated, vulnerable outpost. As the last enemy ship disappeared from their scanners, exhaustion finally caught up with both Jace and Nyla. "We did it," Jace said, voice rough from issuing commands and lack of sleep. He looked over at Nyla, whose crystalline skin had dimmed slightly with fatigue, but still caught the light in mesmerizing patterns. "Together," she replied, a tired smile curving her lips. The days that followed brought a new rhythm to the outpost. Communications with command were restored, bringing commendations for their defense and promises of additional security measures. But more importantly, the walls between Jace and Nyla had crumbled completely. One evening, as Terrasnean's 3 moons rose over the desert landscape, they sat together on the observation deck. Jace no longer angled his scarred side away from her. Nyla's fingers traced the patterns of his injuries with a tenderness that still amazed him. "The minerals I came to study," she said quietly. "They're not just scientifically valuable to my people," Jace turned to face her. "No. They're used in our bonding ceremonies." Her crystalline patterns shimmered with what he now recognized as emotional significance. When Australi choose life partners, these minerals help create a permanent resonance between their crystalline structures. Understanding dawned slowly. "You knew before you came?" Nyla's gemstone eyes met his. "I requested this assignment specifically after seeing your file, not because of scientific interest, but because I sensed something in the brief transmission included with your documentation, a resonance that matched my own." "You came looking for me," Jace whispered, wonderment in his voice. "For someone who would understand what it means to carry the weight of survival," she confirmed. "I didn't expect to find so much more." Her hand found his, their fingers intertwining. Where their skin touched, her crystalline patterns seemed to pulse in time with his heartbeat. "When my assignment ends," she began hesitantly. "Stay," Jace said simply. Then, seeing her surprise, he continued, "Or I could request reassignment. Command owes me after 6 years of isolation and successfully defending their precious mining operation." Nyla's patterns brightened with joy. "There are worlds where our peoples coexist, where neither of us would be considered unusual." "I'd like to see those worlds," Jace admitted. "With you?" As Terrasnean's moons climbed higher in the alien sky, they planned their future not in isolation or behind masks of perfection, but together with their scars exposed and accepted. Their journey had just begun, but for the first time since the Battle of Proxima Centauri, Jace looked forward to tomorrow, and when Nyla kissed him, her cool lips meeting his scarred ones, the last of his doubts melted away. Some journeys required traveling alone.
But healing true. Healing required the courage to let someone else walk beside you, under the stars of a distant world.
2 survivors from different worlds found what neither expected, not just acceptance, but celebration of the mark's life had left upon them.